there's a wonderful breeze coming through, right? He does not feel that at all. Basically what's happening is his body temperature is going to increase about 20 degrees inside the armor.
20 degrees
A lot of
inside the
knights
armor.
back then would die of heat exhaustion on the battlefield. They would be in battles for hours and hours. We have the luxury of having a squire come out and give water when they need it so they don't drop dead. Back then, they would just drop dead. So you will see them stop every so often because, you know, good help's hard to find.
Added on top of that, I have a really bad head cold. You understand that when we say they're in battle for hours and hours, that is not a constant fighting, right? The battles at that point were set up, so they would come in, they would clash, and then they would split up. They would reform their ranks and come in and clash. But between that time, they would say, all right, potty break, everybody run over to the porta-john. Right, so they are in constant battle, but they don't get to take any rest, really. They don't get to lay down, they don't get to take the armor off. And this can literally go from sun up to sundown. Then there's kind of an agreed upon point where they stop battle for the day, they go and eat and rest, and they'll come back on the morrow and keep going. And so this is what we're looking at here. But somebody asked me earlier, well, what happens if they have to use the restroom?
Yes,
Well, it's the left side, I believe.
Give you an idea, too, after the battle, the squires would be responsible as part of their duties for cleaning the knight's armor. You can just imagine, between all the death and gross and gories and having to go to the bathroom in the middle of a fight. Great job they have, huh? But they were being trained up to become a knight, so eventually they would have somebody clean their armor. Yes.
All right, we ready?
Ready?
Sir Jordan in the red. Sir Brian in the full metal.
He's wearing a kind of a basic 15th century armor. You would have found this one kind of German. He's kind of got a mishmash. He's got kind of a mishmash, which you would have actually found. Like if you go to a museum, you see these gorgeous suits of armor. Those were by the rich people. Common folk, even knights, weren't considered rich. It was a title. So they would have to get their armor. So they would sometimes buy it piecemeal. You could pick it up on the battlefield really cheap after a battle. This is kind of a fantasy stuff. We're kind of getting them into that.
So his legging and his armor is Gothic armor.
Gothic armor. That's what Jordan is wearing.
Pieces, he's representing a man-at-arms, and many of them were just as skilled with certain weapons as the knights. They just couldn't afford to do what the knights were doing. So they would armor themselves up as best they could. Sometimes scavenged from the field, sometimes it was inherited, whatever they could put on their bodies. But they were fairly well paid, but they certainly didn't have a steady base of income. Knights had land holdings, and so they collected taxes each year. These were basically indentured mercenaries, and they would sign on with the knight and travel with him to a certain point. And literally, it was contracts by the month. So certain armies would sign on for 4 months, and at the end of 4 months, they either had to sign a new contract or they all got up and went home.
And that's happened in quite a few battles where they just left.
And then you couldn't stop them because they had a legal contract. So on Thursday, we're done. If the battle's not over, we're going home. Right? And that's how it worked. And sometimes battles ended just because half the army left.
So the knights you see, the soldiers you see portrayed as like forced to do service, sort of, but I mean they were still paid, and they didn't have to go beyond their contract. I mean, a lot of times these nobles would renew their contracts because, well, they kind of had to, you know, but they had a good deal going on.
We're all set.
We're all set? One more round? One more? One more?
Okay, so one more. Who's ready?
Ready!